Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. And we've got two segments left. And the first thing is that Obama has now gone to Martha's Vineyard, as we just heard. And the point is, this indicates his obvious abysmal lack of political talents. This is now worse than Jimmy Carter and the rabbit, right? Maybe the killer rabbit will show up when Obama goes out in his canoe or something like this. Obama's bus tour was simply a bus tour of demagogy. Turns out his bus was made in Canada. There are no U.S. bus manufacturers left. This is now the degradation that we have, thanks to the trilateral boys, Volcker, Carter, and then continuing that with the same economic policies under Reagan. Not much different. So he's now at a $50,000 Martha's Vineyard estate. The debate in his policy crew is whether to go big or to stay small. He'll stay small because he is small. He's now below 40%. We do have the Progressive Caucus. This is also a pretty sad case. Raul Grijalva of the Progressive Caucus comes out with his jobs program. It's border infrastructure. Wait a minute. Border infrastructure is all well and good, but we need a national program. Can't be just for your district there, Congressman. It's got to be a national program. And remember, Obama is the guy who put Medicare on the chopping block. The Medicare provider payments are on the chopping block of the 12 tyrants. And the 12 tyrants, we're learning who owns them. The 12 tyrants are now conspiring in the background to strip you, to flay you, and deprive you of your economic rights. Who owns the 12 tyrants? A survey of the campaign contributions indicate that the 12 tyrants, and this applies to all of them, Republicans and Democrats alike, as Obama is fond of saying, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, General Electric, a hedge fund, Citibank, Morgan Stanley, the Club for Growth, which is a lobbying organization. It's the growth in the sense of cancer, as we see in this person of Senator Toomey the Toomer, who's also he's one of the 12 tyrants. So this is now the malaise that we have. The answer: make Wall Street pay. This crisis is now going to get worse. We have the Thursday, August 18th, Wall Street Journal. Fed eyes European banks. The idea is that European zombie bankers have stashed away a huge amount of cash in the United States using QE2 to get some of this cash. As these banks approach bankruptcy, which is clearly where they're headed, as Greece defaults and others default, these banks will come under tremendous pressure. Many of them are going to fail, and at that point you're going to see huge hot money flows across the Atlantic in the direction of Europe as they try to stave off bankruptcy. This money in there has peaked. Money held in Manhattan by these European bankers has peaked, and it's now down, I believe, 15 or 16% in the most recent reporting period. So over the last month or two, it's down after having been up quite dramatically. So you get the idea. We have now turned a disgusting lurch towards the European banking crisis exploding all over the place. So this is going to get very, very ugly. The answer to all this: implement my 5-point program. I've put certain points up front. This is a matter of agitational tactical variation, but there will be no world recovery without the implementation of the entire 5-point program. And this is enough to refute the persons of limited intelligence, the Glass-Steagall fetishists. Glass-Steagall is in my program, but the idea that Glass-Steagall by itself could be the key to a recovery at this late date, no, it's too late for Glass-Steagall to do its main job. It can still do a lot, and it needs to be there as insurance against no repetition of this. But you see the idea. Let's now look at the international situation. Concerning Libya, we're getting many manic reports from the al-Qaeda rebels about their ability to cut the corridor between Tripoli and Djerba, Tunisia, along that coast. I know the road. I've been on it going both ways, day and night. It is not clear whether this road is yet cut. It is not clear whether the pictures that you're seeing on television are photoshopped or whatever they are. And let me just give you some examples of this. If you listen to this Diane Rehm show, on National Public Radio on Friday mornings. Their panel there, David Ignatius, a well-known speaking tube of the U.S. intelligence community, writes for the Washington Post. They are extremely cautious. They are absolutely unwilling to put their necks out to give credibility to the al-Qaeda rebels. In terms of these claims, whether this coastal road is cut, this is, I think, just about impossible to determine. There are conflicting reports. The question of the refinery, Gaddafi's last oil refinery, this is also, in my view, uncertain. What is happening at Brega is also uncertain. There are reports from the Gaddafi side that the Gaddafi forces have now finally extinguished the rebellion, crushed the rebellion in Misurata. That is denied by the al-Qaeda rebel side. We do have pretty good indications that the pace of NATO genocidal bombing and war crimes from the skies, that this has increased. 5 large bombs hitting Tripoli overnight. The rebels claim that they now have a soldatesca of 5,000 troops. Again, who knows? I wouldn't believe any of those claims. The consensus of the Ignatius and company on this Diane Rehm show this morning is that as we approach the 6-month mark, we got 2 problems. The stresses in the NATO coalition. We get to September 20th, about a month from now. Will the operation be renewed by NATO? Who will take this opportunity to drop out? Which one of the bankrupt European states dealing with a banking crisis and internal unrest, riots in the streets, and God knows what else? Which of them will take this opportunity to remove at least one crisis from their crisis plate by simply saying Libya will have to find its own way. We are going home, and maybe some losses, if they have some in the meantime, could encourage them to do this. Some say that it will be over by the fall. I am not at all certain. The NATO mandate will expire. The other thing that they stressed is that and this is quite obvious, that the Yunus assassination, the assassination of Yunus by the Hifter faction, the CIA faction, using the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group and al-Qaeda, this points out that as the conflict goes on, the centrifugal tendencies in the al-Qaeda rebel camp increase, their tribal rivalries. And, of course, if they think they're at the point where Gaddafi would cease to be their opposition, that is when they will fly apart more than ever before. In other words, their fictitious unity is maintained by NATO payments and NATO bombing, but also by the fact that they're in combat with Gaddafi. Gaddafi's not there, then they fly apart. It's a recipe for chaos. To the extent, which I do not know, that the rebels are advancing, it is time now to demand that the United Nations Security Council impose a ceasefire, because if the al-Qaeda rebels, with their tribal vendettas, were to enter the city of Tripoli, which I don't believe they will, but if they did, this would be a massacre beyond anything that anybody has seen in recent years. This would go far beyond. It would basically get you up into the league of the Lake District of Africa in 1994, 1995. And this time it would be imposed by the United Nations using NATO and in the name of protecting civilians. So in the name of protecting some civilians, a much larger mass of civilians is going to be massacred. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.